welcome. Shabbat Shalom, and if you are joining us via YouTube tonight, Shabbat Shalom to you too. You may be surprised that we're back. The rabbi is not sitting next to me currently, that's true, but he will be here in a few moments, just greeting some of our families who are here having a little dinner outdoors, and we are here. We're small but mighty, the group here tonight. Everybody say Shabbat Shalom! Yeah, beautiful. So Shabbat Shalom and welcome. We are using a different prayer book tonight than we do typically on Shabbat because we have these really beautiful, this series of very beautifully crafted and curated Siddurim from the CCAR, from the Reform Movement's Rabbinical Assembly, and during Slichot, which begins tomorrow night, we get to use this beautiful Siddur, but also for tonight's services. So everyone has one, I hope? And you'll see, because Randy will put it in the chat for you now, you can join us. We're going to begin on page 3 of the prayer book with a little kavanah, hopefully, for everybody. Give yourself a moment to let the week go, to let it ease out of you as we breathe in the strength and the renewal. Shabbat, ready for us. We sing, O Uzi, Beizim Ratia. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's so good to be together. We continue, of course, in this month of Elul. We're just now about, 9 days away from Rosh Hashanah. And so we get to use this beautiful Siddur with some extraordinarily poignant and important texts here to hopefully crack our hearts open wider to what's real inside of us, what needs to be really reflected upon in Elul. So I want to invite our whole community to join together in this reading on the top of page 11. And while we do that, I'm going to invite Becky and Seth and Max to come up and prepare to light our Shabbat candles. In the beginning, emptiness and chaos, a great darkness over the deep. The Spirit of God moved over the waters, explosion of light, the long chain of emerging life. Behold, it was very good. These candles evoke the very first light. Out of the darkness came reason, purpose, consciousness of beauty, the power to discern and do what is right. Let us hold the light in our hearts, Let us bring it with us into the darkest corners of creation, where there is pain and fear. Let us offer the light of love. Take a moment to let all of this warmth enter into our hearts. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We continue now with our Kiddush prayer. We just move forward one page, page 12. Savri l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'vratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. L'chaim. Shabbat shalom, friends. Feel free to write to L'chaim and a Shabbat shalom wish in the chat for friends who are visiting and joining us by Zoom. We continue our tefillah on page 22. We join together. Come forth, my beloved. Let me run out to greet you. Let me know that bliss of being incredibly joined together from the heart.
Please be seated.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, Cantor. It's good to see everybody. For those who are curious, I'm a little bit late because, did you tell? Or
I told them part of the story.
Yeah. So one of the things about converting to Judaism is that it's a singular process. You only really get to do it. We meet, I and the conversion student, but you don't always get a chance to meet all of the people who are currently going through it. And so we're having a dinner over there with all of the people and their families who are working on conversion, who are in the process of converting, which is, we have about 8 or so individuals currently studying for conversion in our congregation right now. And so a subset, about 5 of the 8 with their families are eating dinner together. And so they're continuing on, but balancing being in 2 places at once, which is a fun experience. And if you want to understand more about that, watch the movie tomorrow night at Slichot.
Very nice plan.
Yes.
So we continue together, the bottom of page 29.
Holy is twilight, the realm of in-between. And so our sages taught, pray in the moments when light and darkness touch. We are all twilight people, beyond categories and labels. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. Let illumine our way to the God who transcends all boundaries and definitions. Blessed are you, God, who brings on the twilight. Ahavat Olam, page 30. Beit Yisrael, Amcha משפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Page 34.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We're on page 35.
Behavta for Elul. You shall love the ones who are close, with all your heart, with all your spirit, with all your strength. Remember these words, inscribe them on your heart. Love them when they struggle, when they sadden and disappoint you. Love them when they fail. See the good within them even when they can't. Look at them and listen even when it's hard. Be grateful for their guidance, even if they're reproof, when they say you from yourself. Love them when they give you joy, and love them when they don't. When you lie down, let go of anger. When you rise up at dawn, begin again. Praise them for their deeds at home. Speak to them in public with respect. Bind yourself to the ones you love, with promises kept and vows fulfilled. Open to them the gates of your heart, the doorway of your soul, and let them know you. So shall the ones you cherish feel your love, your presence, and your care.
We're on page 41.
36.
We're on page 36. Before we're on page 41.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
Now we're on page 41. Crossing the sea. Eternal, watch over my small domain of light and shadow, those few people who share my love and all others upon this earth that sometimes shakes with thunder and reverberates with lightning. Help us to live with fear and to conquer rage. Heal the hate that makes us kill and covers the ground with this Red Sea that only you can part. So we may all walk through the wilderness to your realm of peace where all men and women are one and sing your blessed name. Page 42. Page 40, I'm sorry. A prayer for the evening, page 42. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Na 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 So in a moment, we're going to turn to page 48 as we move into our tefillah, our central prayer of our evening worship. And one of the reasons that we chose to use this prayer book tonight is because it's a special prayer book themed for Slichot, which is going to be Saturday night, and for the month of Elul, which we are in right now. Now, the Reform movement does a particularly good job, I think, at finding ancillary readings to go with the prayers in our prayer book, right? Each prayer book has their own unique skill set. The Reform movement is really good at two things specifically. It's good at making sure that there's transliteration for everything so it's accessible. And it's really good at finding the right poem to match up with the right prayer. And so we often skip over these poems because honestly, you get used to them, they feel repetitive, and you lose the majesty of what it says. But I'll invite you as you're praying your silent Amidah, not only to pray the traditional words on the page, but to glance over at some of the poetry. It's been handpicked specifically for the themes of this year. The idea that we are moving toward transformation, moving toward self-discovery, moving toward forgiveness, and moving toward asking for forgiveness from others. So as you pray this, take a moment and allow your eyes to glance over to the left side of the page to be informed by the beautiful poetry in our prayer book. We rise together, page 48.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Shalom שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל יעשה שלום שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
At this point in our service, I'll ask you to join me on page 76 with this opportunity for a Misha Berach for those in need of healing. May the one whose blessings are many heal and bless us, and all those who live in the shadow of illness. May God's care bring us comfort and courage. May God's love open our eyes to the faith and compassion around us. May the source of hope and renewal show us the way toward peace of mind, wholeness within, and strength from community. Source of blessings, as you inspired Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, inspire us too. Let us shine the soft light of human kindness in dark places. Let song, prayer, and silence be our instruments of care and healing. Let us all, the sick and the well together, be blessed as God blessed Joshua. Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and of good courage. And let us say, Amen. I offer the opportunity as I look around the room for you to add names for those that need healing, as well as putting names in the chat. And once we look around the room, we'll look at the screen and we'll be able to see all the names. As we focus on the screen.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו, may the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha le'avotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema.
The renewal
The renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Oh, it's good to be back and giving sermons after a summer working with other people to give their sermons. By the way, that was an experiment this summer of doing a class in how to deliver Divrei Torah, and the products that people came up with were extraordinary. I was so happy to get a chance to read what they came up with. I want to reflect a little bit on the time of year that we're in, and I want to do it in light of this week's Torah portion, because there's an interesting ritual that appears at the end of the book of Deuteronomy, actually in this week's Torah portion, that is unlike, I would say, any ritual spelled out in Judaism. The idea is that the children of Israel, the 12 tribes, are supposed to split up, and they're supposed to stand basically on opposite sides of the mountain. And two mountains facing one another, they're supposed to scream blessings and curses back and forth together. The most famous of the mountains is called Mount Gerizim. And in doing so, there's this kind of interesting ritual that is spelled out in the Torah portion, where basically one group of people speaks the curse, and the rest of the group of Israelites, all shout Amen together. So one says, for example, "Cursed be he who curses his father and mother," and everybody yells Amen. And someone else says, "Cursed be he who worships idols," and everybody yells Amen. "Cursed be he who takes bribes," Amen. And it moves from curse to curse to curse of things that you might be doing wrong. But I want to pause for a second. I want to think about what it might be like to be in that crowd and to have done the action. Right? Imagine if you're a serial cursor of your parents, or imagine if you're a serial idolatrist or a serial bribe taker. And when you hear these great voices from atop the mountain cursing, you're forced in unison to say Amen together. In a way, it's the inverse of what we do every Yom Kippur. In fact, what we do every Yom Kippur, in a way, is compassionate. Think about it this way. Because everybody stands up and says, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, right? I have sinned, I have been treacherous, I have stolen, and moves through each of these. Knowing, by the way, that not everybody who beats their chest and says each of the sins during Yom Kippur will have done it. What you do, actually, is you provide cover for those who did. Could you imagine if I said, "I'll now invite everyone who committed adultery to please rise"? No one would ever do it. But yet the simple action of us all collectively doing this holds that person up and allows them to say with integrity, to open their mouth and to proclaim aloud, because they have the cover of other people, "I have done wrong. I have committed adultery. I have stolen. I have been treacherous." The Torah portion, on the other hand, seems to do the opposite. Whereas on Yom Kippur, the point is to lift people up and to erase the shame from before them. What we find on this week's Torah portion is that the shame is only reinforced. The culture around them condemn an act that they have done, and they are forced to raise their voice together and condemn that action too. There is no catharsis. In fact, they are left with a feeling of shame, a burden on their shoulders. I actually think it is not the way to redemption. It is not the way to Teshuva. And we have to think very seriously about the way that we can influence others and create a culture where people do feel comfortable coming forth and proclaiming sins that they might have done. Imagine being a parent and you've caught your child doing something. How much success will you have if before you confront them with it, you tell them how much trouble they're going to be in if they tell you the truth? You can almost guarantee that they're going to lie. What I find works, and by the way, I'm not even really at that point in my life yet with an almost 3-year-old and a 15-month-old, but I've been a camp counselor a lot, and I've worked with children for my career, is to begin by saying, you will not be in trouble if you tell me the truth. If you say that, it allows them to tell you the truth without the burden of the shame on them. And shame and silence are intimately mixed. Without silence, shame disappears. If you can get it off your chest, if you can speak your truth, if, to use a metaphor of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, if you can erase it from your bones, who he says when you hold on to something, it is etched onto your bones, then you are able finally to let go of that feeling of shame. We as a community want many things. We want people to admit when they do wrong. We want them to seek to change. And by the way, shame does allow you to change. Unfortunately, there is a difference between teshuva and change. What is the difference? Teshuva has to have an element of public. It has to have you come clean to those that you have wronged. And if you worry about everybody piling on to you when you do it, if you make it so unsafe for those to come forward, you will never find people who will do tshuva. They might decide never to do that action again, whether it's stealing or adultery or idolatry. And that's a step forward. But until you can admit the mistake, until you can turn to those that you hurt and apologize, until you can greet them with open arms, open eyes, and an open heart, you are never going to find that redemption. Our goal, though it's not perfect, is to create a situation where they feel safe enough to raise their voice. And our tradition has many examples of that. My favorite, by the way, is something called takanat hashavim. I don't know if you know this, but according to classical Jewish law, if I steal something from you, I got to give it back to you plus a penalty. The only problem is, what if I steal something from you and the thing that I stole now has become invaluable to me? Am I actually going to give it back? It's almost the same way as leading with telling the child that they're going to be in trouble. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to hold on to that thing forever, constantly feeling bad, never making amends, even if I never steal again. And the example that's used is the idea that if I steal a beam from you, because in the ancient world, real strong wooden beams were kind of hard to come by, right? And I build that beam into my house. So it is the center beam holding my house up. Then in order to give you back the beam I stole, I have to tear my house down. But according to our tradition, you don't. According to our tradition, if something would get in your way of tshuva, you can at that point pay for it instead of giving it back. And so although imperfect, the apology for stealing a beam and building it into the center of the house is to give a fair price of what a beam would cost plus a penalty, even if beams are hard to come by. The goal in creating a community is to create a community where people feel safe enough to come forward, where the things that we say about the sins around us doesn't cause people shame, but rather empowers them to come out, to say their truth, to create a space that is safe enough for each of us to be honest. Only then can we wipe away the shame. Only then can we find forgiveness. Only then can we reach Teshuva. We're going to move now to page 78 as we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot adam ha, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those that we've loved and lost as together we turn to page 86. And if you're observing a yard site, I'll invite you to rise or share their name in the chat. This Shabbat we think of Fred Abramson, Samuel Ainsfield, Leah Kaplan Baum, Sylvia Billow, Andrew Boardstein, Naomi Chilton, Marie Davidson, Florence Friedman, Ann Fixel Glass, Florence Grossman, Gertrude Hogg, Sarah Holland, Arthur Jacoby, Philip Levoff, Lottie Marger, Barbara Mazer, Herbert Neifeld, Samuel Pfeffer, Marion Roth, Ruth Sandler, Edward Siegel, Helen Sloan, Howard Sweetwood, Emil Weiss, Beverly Wolfson, and Edith Yorish. And for those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Warren Price, uncle of Lori Price Abrams, Frances Sachs, mother of Ken Sachs and Diana Meadow, Norma Perlman, mother of Marcia Kramer, and Linda Alexander, sister of Eleanor Sontag. In addition, I'll invite you to rise and share the name of anyone for whom you are observing a yard site that may not have been on this list. And finally, if there's anyone here who's in their 1-year period of mourning, I'll invite you to rise and share the name of the person for whom you're thinking. We rise together once again, page 86. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach yirtzeh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei omaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'elam yimchol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiram b'yamav v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo Rabbah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. And Lev and Amalia, feel free to come in. If you were joining us virtually, you saw me beckon them in. They're right at the door, so they can come on in. Lev, you can come in if you want. Just a few announcements before the closing song. Yeah, Lev, come on in. Just a few announcements before the closing song. The first is, if you haven't told us which high holiday services you're going to, please do. We want to know if you're virtual. We want to know if you are in person. We want to know which service. And if you haven't uploaded your vaccine card, please do that as well. And sign up, of course, for things like the lunch and other such activities on the second day. Tomorrow, services 10 a.m., Torah study 9 a.m. Tomorrow night at 7:30, we're going to be screening a movie. It's a British romantic comedy from 2013 about time travel, and it has many, many, many of the themes of the High Holy Days. Hopefully you'll come check that out. And following that, we'll be having services. Unfortunately, we won't be live streaming that service because it's really hard to know exactly how to time that service, because that service is after a movie discussion. So if you want to come, feel free, join us. And if you only want to come for the service, that's totally fine. Fair bet is probably about 2 hours into the program is when we would be having the service. Anything else you want to add? There's tons of other stuff going on our calendar. Take a look.
No, it's wonderful to be back together. Hi, Amaya. Shabbat
Hey,
shalom.
Malzi,
She's
come on
walking
over.
really well. No big announcements. Just please come and celebrate this new year. And if next week you want to join us, for me, Tuesday night, I don't know which.
Yes,
night.
and I'm Wednesday night
And
for
on
our book
Wednesday
discussion.
night Rabbi will be each leading a separate discussion on 2 different books that we chose that we've been studying and have been gleaning from over the last few weeks. So sign up for those as well. It's a nice way for us to continue to be accountable during this week. Yep. So that's it. So we're going to end our tefillah back into that deep place of intention to let our hands and everything that comes through us be about bringing love into the world and building a world up from that place. Page 92.
Olam chesed yibaneh, Yadadai
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom to those who joined us virtually and for those in person. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Lev.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Oh, look at that big picture. Shabbat shalom, Diane.
Shabbat shalom, Beth, Richard.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat